We aim to produce an interesting show by giving a platform to many different views and perspectives. That's why the opinions expressed and statements made by our guests are theirs and theirs alone. They do not necessarily reflect the views or opinions of our presenters, Due North PR, or the podcast itself. You're listening to True North, a regular roundup of business and community news and developments in Northland. Hello and welcome to True North. Thank you for taking the time to listen. It's Wednesday, the 20th of August. I'm Peter Heath. On the show ahead,
it's sort of a little bit more of a holistic approach. So it's still being really smart around how you do business and how you govern, but it's bringing a holistic approach of, and this is going to sound really fluffy, Peter, but it's like asking what would love do.
I speak with community leaders Tania McInnes and Sheryl Mai about what they're calling heart-led leadership. What is it? Why do we need it? And does it stand a snowball's chance in hell of surviving first contact with some of our more hard-bitten and cynical leadership and governance teams? First, though, a look at what's happening in business and community news across our region. The first business and economic survey from more than 20 chambers of commerce across the country was published earlier this month. It points to a growing divide in business sentiment, with rural regions such as Canterbury, Southland, and Manawatu-Whanganui more optimistic than Auckland and other urban centres. New Zealand Chambers of Commerce says these regions are buoyed by strong performances in agriculture, tourism, food production, manufacturing, and logistics. Northland was one of the regions that didn't cross the optimism threshold, though, reporting weak demand and spiralling cost pressures. Tourism and hospitality, two of our economic mainstays, were among sectors that NZ Chambers of Commerce say continue to struggle across the board. Primary industries are leading the way in terms of economic recovery, the survey said, with strong performance in food production, agri-tech and logistics, and that's carrying through to other parts of the economy. But the recovery has yet to take hold in urban regions and service-based industries. We'll include a link to the NZ Chamber of Commerce release in the show notes. Fisheries NZ is consulting on a proposal that would see a year-round ban on recreational crayfishing along the entirety of Northland's east coast, from North Cape to Te Arai Point. It says this is one of a range of potential options to address the ecological damage being caused by kina barrens, areas where colonies of kina have grazed kelp forests and destroyed once-rich coastal marine ecosystems. The proliferation of kina barrens across large swathes of the east coast of Northland has become a major concern for the region. The proposals put forward by Fisheries NZ form part of an integrated management approach which it says will help restore kelp forests and mitigate the spread of urchin barrens. Measures include increasing the abundance of predators like rock lobster and snapper, alongside special permits for urchin removal. Submissions on the proposed ban and catch limit reductions are being accepted until 5 p.m. on September the 22nd. We'll include a link to the NZ Fisheries news release in the show notes. We've heard much in recent times about the virtues of leadership, infused with kindness and compassion. Is it all fluffy millennial nonsense, or does at least some of it deliver better results within the organisation, around the board table, or to the bottom line? And how much of this stuff resonates with typically hard-bitten leadership teams in provincial New Zealand, far removed from the chai latte-sipping, painfully right-on fashionistas with sharp haircuts based in our urban centres? How relevant is it to those of us leading businesses or community organisations in the regions? Well, these core questions are bound to be raised in an event taking place in Whangarei next Friday, the 29th of August. Leading Lights Women is a series of events designed to support and encourage women to grow their leadership impact. They're run by prominent Northlander Tania McInnes, and next Friday's event at the Orchard Business and Event Hub is called Heart-Led Leadership, Championing Authenticity, Empathy and Connection. It will be hosted and facilitated by that equally prominent Northlander, former Whangarei Mayor Sheryl Mai. Sheryl and Tania join us today. Kia ora korua. Thank you for joining us. It's brilliant to have you both here on True North.
Kia ora, Peter. Awesome to be here. Really good. I was about to swear then. I better not.
Oh, well, feel free.
Great to
Feel
be
free.
here.
You are both veterans of the knock 'em down, drag 'em out bun fight that is local government, right? Tania, you were Deputy Mayor of the Far North, and Sheryl, you were Mayor of Northland's largest urban centre, the Whangarei district. Let's be honest, there isn't usually much room for kindness, empathy, and connection in the council chamber. Is this at least partly what's sparked your enthusiasm for this topic?
Really good question, Peter. I guess what I know about Sheryl and myself is we both have servant leadership. We both come from a servant heart approach. So my experience within council wasn't, because I had a different mindset of trying to, I've got tattooed on my finger actually rise above, so stay out of the weeds and focus on the strategy and the governance and the reasons we were there. I certainly, as community leaders or civic leaders, the importance of having empathy, being able to connect to your communities, hear what your communities are saying and be able to represent them is super important.
Yeah. What about you, Sheryl?
So in my experience, actually served on 5 councils. I was a councillor for a couple of terms as well. So, and in my experience, the leadership style that I brought, as Tania highlighted, was, you can't change who you are or the gender you are. So the leadership style kind of reflects who you are and where you come from. There certainly was cut and thrust. I loved the debating chamber, the aspect of the fact that we were really chewing through some meaty issues that our district was facing. But I think the leadership style and the people around the council table meant that we could come to good decisions, always thinking of the people that we were representing and serving, and that came through most often. There were times, of course, when there was blood on the floor, but most of the time it really was probably because of the leadership styles of the people who were in the top seat.
Okay, cool. So what is heart-led leadership? How would you define it? And what will those who attend next week's session be learning about, Tania?
A really good question. So we have head and heart. So often, and how we're often being taught is to use the head focused on thinking and logic. And heart base is really coming from a place of, I would call it almost like emotional intelligence. So high emotional intelligence, you have compassion, empathy, authenticity is really important. So you come a place from realness. And so it's sort of a little bit more of a holistic approach. So it's still being really smart around how you do business and how you govern, but it's bringing a holistic approach of, and this is going to sound really fluffy, Peter, but it's like asking what would love do? What would aroha do? So you're coming from a place of what's the best outcome for, whoever it is you're representing or that outcome. So whether it's your team or a community leadership or even in your home and how you're leading, what's the best outcome for the whole rather than the more logistical approach or bottom line of top dollar.
Okay, so, I've got some questions around how all of this survives first contact with cold, hard commercialism. We'll get into that in a minute, because I know that a lot of people will be going, right, sounds great, but the minute you've actually got to stack it up against the bottom line, it all sort of falls away and evaporates. So, but first, let me ask, do you think authenticity, emotional IQ, connection, all of those things that you spoke about are particularly female leadership traits, or is that an unhealthy stereotype, do you think? I can certainly point to more than one or two pretty unempathetic, ruthless, and cold-bloodedly commercial female leaders not a million miles away from where we're all sitting. What's your take on that?
So first of all, I just want to talk about gender. So I'm going to refer to it as the feminine and the masculine, because I believe that everyone carries both, and I know I fluctuate between both ways. It is certainly a perception that is a female nurturing approach, heart-based, but actually it is gender neutral, because when you're working with teams or companies that people are they're resonating with their leadership, they're on the same board, they feel heard, listened, and valued, then you build team spirit. And from the team spirit, actually productivity, you can Google search all this stuff. Productivity rises, you get stronger teams, your turnover is less because there's a buy-in and commitment to the purpose, whatever the purpose is for the organisation and where they're going.
What's your take, Sheryl? Do you think it's a very stereotypical setup?
I think that it's not as clear cut as perhaps it was. There's still, though, that sense that the nurturing, caring tends to be more of a feminine attribute, but less of that is challenged now if you do find that in male leaders. And that's got to be a good thing. It's also probably less challenged that you've got the feisty woman, the cut and thrust woman who also breaks that supposed gender stereotype. So I think times are changing, and there's nothing wrong with focusing on the good things about both genders, or as many genders as you like to think about.
Okay. The next question might seem a little mean and cynical. It's not coming from me. I'm asking it because I know that there are loads and loads of people out there who will ask it themselves. Surely by raising this whole issue in an event aimed squarely at Northland women, you're simply reinforcing the stereotype that the women leaders in any organization are those who bring the warm and fuzzies to the table, which may or may not be as valued as greatly as the cold, hard commercial logic that gets brought to the table. Would this not be better served in a much more cross-gender environment, do you think?
Totally agree, Peter. Bring it on. Yep. We need to be having these conversations across everyone. It's not one or the other. The reason as men have men's spaces, the reason women have spaces, because it is actually quite a safe place to come together and just be able to, commune and connect. But absolutely, I value men as much as I value women, and it is important. I have to say, though, it's really hard to get men in to talk about, sort of the softer stuff.
Yeah.
And so if you've got any ideas on that, let us know.
No, and you know what? It strikes me that there's a benefit to being able to do it in a room, talk about the issue in a room full of women, because there is a difficulty, isn't there, when women try and assert their positions around a boardroom table. I'm going to be speaking with a Northland business leader, Catherine De Bruyn, fairly shortly, and in our sort of warm-up discussion, the talk we have before we do these interviews, Catherine was telling me that, she feels quite often that she has to don a persona, a suit of armor to find her place around the board table, and she talks about how she deals with that.
Absolutely.
So that's going to be something coming on down the line, but presumably inside this sort of safe space, this gender-specific safe space, there will be an opportunity to talk about how women can deal with the cynicism that's expressed around leadership tables when they do bring these values to the discussion.
As you said, it's super vulnerable. So you need to be courageous, and you need these safe spaces to be able to test it out. So this is the cool thing with Leading Lights, is we have these safe spaces that people can put their heart on the table and share stuff and be supported in what that does and doesn't look like. So at the end of the day, there's no right or wrong way of doing anything. It's just providing that support network and that encouragement, Sheryl? It's that encouragement to just trust, learning to trust the instinct.
There must be risks involved, aren't there, with encouraging leaders to dial up their authenticity and their empathy and connection. I vividly remember the chair of a board scoffing to me about a newbie director who'd made the mistake of confessing that she was looking forward to learning from the experience and expertise of the chair and her fellow directors on the board. So the chair turns around to me and said, "I'm not interested in a director who's learning on the job. I want experience and capability." And he couldn't take her seriously from that point forward. And the point is, I guess, she'd brought her authenticity to the table, right? With the net result that she had to work ultimately 2 times, 3 times, 4 times as hard as any of the other directors around that table to earn his respect, or for her views to be taken seriously. So how do you avoid or mitigate that risk?
I've got a couple of comments. One, that chair should be gone. Quite frankly, that sort of behaviour as a leader of an organisation is appalling. And that, to me, you know, if I were around the board table, I think I would have been pushing to move the chair on. The other point was that that young person probably will end up being a fabulous director as a result of that challenge.
It's a bit of a sad example, but very, very common, Peter. I mean, I guess there's a few things. Sometimes it's about choosing your battles, and you can hold value without, you know, engaging in the debate. I've removed myself from particular groups if I've found that I'm not a fit for that. But also you need a bit of a tribe, I have to say. You know, if you've got someone, because succession planning is something we don't do well in Northland around leadership. You've got someone that comes forward, she's obviously, you know, brought the expertise to the table that she's been appointed. Sometimes we need the tribe, and if she's, you know, there's still fear there, is those people that will step up for her, you know, the people that hold mana around the table that can have her back. So, because that is a really old school thinking, which I think is moving out, fortunately, but it is something to be dealt with, and it's really difficult. You know, being authentic is not easy. All wearing masks a lot of the time to try and fit into society, and none of us want to be different. But actually, it's what we need to be, is we need these people to stand tall and strong, and we need to have their back, but we also need to not leave them out in the frickin', you know, and leave them to it. We've got to have each other's back.
Is this a case where it's a lot more difficult for the pathfinders, and that
I think so. Yeah.
once these people who think and practice heart-led leadership find their way onto boards, it's easier for them to help bring other people who think this way into those positions, right? So perhaps, you know, your sessions are hugely valuable, I'm guessing, for these pathfinders who don't have the welcome mat spread out for them in the boardrooms or the leadership rooms or whatever. Authenticity, empathy, and connection, they sit squarely within the topic of diversity in governance, right? Do you think the message about the value of diversity is resonating in Northland boardrooms yet? Not just gender or racial diversity I'm talking about here. I'm talking about diversity of age, background, outlook, politics, all the things that make up the fabric of any community. We're not all the same, thank God. And so do you think that idea of the value of diversity is resonating, or do we still have some way to go, or are we pushing it an open door?
I think we've still got some way to go, Peter. And
I
just
know we've got a long
Mike Sims, you know, kōrero around governance. And, you know, I think you make the point that we're seeing the same people, which, you know, there's some wonderful skill, but we're seeing the same people. And I do get concerned about succession planning. And I also, you know,
by that, do you mean we're seeing the same people being appointed to board after board after board after board?
Yeah, we do see. And, you know, there's some reason for it, but, you know, you've got to bring in that next level or that next layer of, and from a civic point of view, not so much from a business, but from a civic point of view, we need those different voices to be reflected along, you know, across the table, because that's where your richness comes from.
Yeah. Sheryl?
I believe we have a long way to go. We are getting better, but we certainly still have a lack of diversity and equity across the board table in Te Tai Tokoro.
So the obvious question, Sheryl and Tania, whoever wants to answer this one, is why? You know, it's 2025, for God's sake. Why have we still got a long way to go? We should not have a long way to go.
I think one of the reasons is the interest in governance and setting up a business and anything else that you might want to be doing is difficult. These are difficult times. So finding people with the time and the energy and the commitment to perhaps start a new business, or to go on to a board of trustees for a school, or they might be shoulder tapped for a governance role. People are time poor, and also some people feel inadequately prepared for such roles.
Okay. Tania, you were having a little smile there. Same question to you. Why Why are we where we are? We should be a lot further forward, right?
Yeah, I agree. I think that there's a network, Peter, and there's a network of people who know people. And so, Northland's small, so we know experience. And there is a network that, I guess, looks after each other, if I put it kindly. I think the other thing is what I've found really interesting with running leadership courses is there's a whole lot of people that don't see themselves as leaders. And it's really interesting in that need to redefine what leadership means. Because actually, at the real base of it, we can either choose to go along with the crowd or we can choose to lead a life that is fulfilling and enriched, or whatever you want to call it. And so recognizing that, every time we make a choice is a form of decision making. And I think it's a lot around confidence. And there's a whole lot of people that don't think they are worthy. And particularly women, I must say. A lot of women do not believe that they are worthy of, even one of the people I asked to speak on our event next week, she didn't feel that she, it was really fascinating because when I look and see the work she does, she is, by Lord, she's an amazing community leader.
Absolutely.
Wow. So I think
you and I have spoken about this before, right? I've had a bitch and a bleat to you about the fact that I can't get women to come and talk on this podcast, right?
Yeah.
Because they defer, and inevitably they defer to their male counterpart or their male chair or their male somebody else. Very few women comparatively are keen to put their hand up and say, yeah, I'll talk to you on your podcast about this. Yeah. Because there's this automatic feeling that they are not worthy. I mean, we get this, we know that this is a factor in job applications, right? Guys, if a guy ticks 2 out of 5 boxes for a job application, you go, yeah, hey, I'm off. Let's get that CV in there. Women, unless they tick 7, 8, or 9 boxes out of 5, they're not going to do it.
I'm one of those.
So, is this a thing that's stopping?
Yes,
stopping
I believe I think it's one of the things. Yes.
Is it gender based, or are there other aspects of diversity where people just don't feel that they want to put their hands up?
I'll be interested in Sheryl, but I certainly think it's much wider than gender-based, Peter.
I definitely believe there's the imposter syndrome comes in a lot. If I reflect back on the times in my life that I've taken a leap of faith applying for a job that, I only ticked 2 out of the 5 boxes instead of 7 out of the 9. And having a person who just gave me that confidence to say, of course you can do that. You'll walk into it, you'll be able to, and you'll fly. Having 1 or 2 people who just give you that prompt with the broomstick behind you to go, yep, and you're away.
So, Tania, you describe in some of your literature about this event the fact that a lot of this is about heart-based decision making. It's about making decisions with your gut instinct, with your heart, with your core feeling, rather than some analytical, cerebral kind of analysis of a situation. Talk to me a little bit more about that, because that's kind of interesting.
Okay, so first of all, I just want to say heart-based leadership, for what people think about it, it does not mean that people are dumb or lack professionalism or anything. It's just a different perspective, Peter. It's the head and heart. We know head is logical, analytical. Heart is more, people orientated, compassion, what's good for the big picture and how do I fit in this. So what I'm trying to say in a nutshell is that a heart-based approach to decision making is like, how does it sit with you? It's your gut telling you, what does this feel like? And when you've got those really big dilemmas, which Sheryl will have led those, and I've sat in council meetings where, it's really, really tough. You've got to come back to actually what feels right. And right isn't, can be different, but what feels right. And that's often not a head thing. And I don't think we are taught enough to trust our instinct. We also defer to whoever the leader is on the room sometimes. We defer to the maturity or whatever, rather than sitting there thinking, there might be a better way. And for me, that is going to come from a heart-based approach while using good logic and good common sense. It's not stupid decisions. It's still smart, but it's coming from a place that feels intuitively right.
We spoke with Mike Sim a couple of episodes ago about actually, it was on the most recent episode, about the need for Northland boards to focus more rigorously on purpose and accountability, and for some of our community-owned or focused organizations to include societal priorities more clearly in their purpose. He said that having capable, qualified, and competent directors drawn from the communities these organizations serve was just as important as having technical or subject matter experts around the board tables. He said, in fact, you can buy in that expertise on a consultancy basis. You don't actually have to have it sitting around the board table. How does this view sit with those that you'll be discussing next Friday?
Absolutely support it, Peter. I think it comes back to that question, if we keep appointing the same people to different boards, you're going to get the same sort of approach. And so what happens when you bring that balance or that diversity across expertise, which you need, and, purpose, expertise, strategy, and then the people on the ground or those experiencing, when they sit around the table, the richness and the magic that could happen in that room could be quite dynamic.
Perfect. I love that. Thank you very much indeed. Is there anything else that you'd like to cover that we haven't touched on today?
Yeah, can I do a little quote, Peter?
Yeah,
so there's a little quote. This is around AI, but for me, it really sums up why heart-based or heart-led leadership is so important. It's a piece of research that's been put out by Talent Smart, and it says recent expert commentary outlines how, as AI takes over analytical and data-heavy tasks, human leaders who bring emotional intelligence, empathy, intuition, ethical judgment are the ones who will drive resilience and trust within organizations. EQ becomes the strategic differentiator that AI can't replicate. And I think that's the message, is that currently we're in this time where it all feels okay, but actually in the next 10 years, I think life's going to look quite different. And we really need to be, encouraging people, to come back and, know who they are, and be in that space that they can bring themselves into a space and stand strong in their purpose, and also stand strong for others, because I think it's going to be a challenging time for a lot of people. And we need, that leadership, the calm in the storm, those people that can stand strong and may not have the answers, but at least can hold space in these changing times.
People who can bring a human element to the decision-making process that is going to become increasingly more data-focused and devoid of that humanity, right? Well, listen, it sounds like it will be a fascinating session on Friday. All the very, very best. I hope you get loads of people signing up. And I wish you everything of the best. And I'd love to hear how it goes. So please do get in touch afterwards and let me know how it goes. And all power to you, and well done for bringing all of this up. Take care, guys.
If you want to organise an event for men, just men or men and women, we'll come along.
Brilliant. Well, hey, there's the challenge. Thank you both very much indeed, and you take care.
Kia ora.
And that's all for today's program. Many thanks to Tania McInnes and Sheryl Mai. True North will return in 2 weeks' time on the 3rd of September, when I'll be speaking with Fiona Bycroft of Naught about the wave of transformation in the way boats are powered, from diesel or petrol to fully decarbonised, and how a Northland company that few of us really know much about is helping to lead that charge. I'm Peter Heath. Thank you for joining us. True North is an original podcast by Due North PR. To support our work and to stay on top of Northland business news and analysis, access the pod on Spotify, YouTube, LinkedIn, and Facebook. Please do take that small extra step and subscribe, like, follow, comment, and review, as it helps others find the show. Please also share it with those who may not yet be aware that we exist. As the New Zealand media landscape continues to change, we rely on your support to continue doing what we do. Please let us know what you think about the podcast. Ask questions or make suggestions about topics and people we should feature by emailing us at truenorth@duenorthpr.co.nz. We do read every message.